I'm Amy Schulz, or Dr. Amy Schulz, depending on what business you come to.
I'm Ryan Schulz, and we're the owners of Cherry City Chiropractic and Salem Swim School in Salem, Oregon.
I got to start right out of the gate.
Okay.
Chiropractic makes me nervous.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the initial fears of,
Yeah, we get it a lot lately, and I think one of the large reasons is because of TikTok, right? You have all those chiropractors on TikTok that are showing off their cool adjustments, and it's not really the adjustments you typically see in the clinic. Sometimes those are a little more fancy for fancy's sake, you know?
Yeah.
One of the big things that we do at our clinic is I'm very big on information. So especially with a history like yours, one of the first things we do is, obviously an examination and then taking x-rays, because I want to see what I'm working on. And not all spines can do the big pop adjustments that you're maybe weary of, right? A lot of, especially older spines, I use a lot of instrument on because there's a ton of arthritis. It doesn't move well. We get better adjustments by using instruments sometimes than me forcing an adjustment. Does that make sense? So, my big goal with a spine, it would sound like what yours would be just function, right? Getting you feeling better, moving better, and maintaining it long term. Our technique that we do is called chiropractic biophysics, and my goal is to see an x-ray before of the spine, and you said you lost that curve in your neck, right? My goal would be to add that curve back in. Now that takes time and repetition, but the benefit of that is when you lose your curve in the neck, it puts pressure on the discs, the vertebral bodies, and makes that spine degenerate quicker. So we want to restore the normal alignment biomechanics so that spine is healthier longer and you're not dealing with those problems long term. So changing that spine objectively on x-ray is my goal with my technique, but that takes information, knowing the spine well, and making sure that I'm properly equipped to take care of your spine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Those are the kinds of things, from somebody that doesn't understand and doesn't know. I mean, I've got 3 or so friends, especially like Mandy and Kaiser at the Oddmos and Kaiser.
Yeah.
She just swears by you, and she just says that, oh my gosh, I got to go see him today for an alignment or something, and she just is happy as a clam after the fact and stuff. But
when it comes to wellness and going back and maintaining, people like feeling good, so that's why they choose to maintain, right?
Yeah.
And my dad was a chiropractor. My first adjustment was at 11 days old, and it's not the adjustment you see on TikTok when you're dealing with 11-year-old or 11-day-old, and that's what more her realm as far as pediatrics. But I got adjusted about once a week growing up. I was way less sick than my peers in my group and in my classes at school, and I eventually stopped getting adjusted when I went away to college to play college basketball. And I found I was sick more often. My body was breaking down playing sports more often. And I realized it's kind of like you don't know what you have till it's gone. And so at that point, I switched from psychology to chiropractic. So I was like, there's something to this, right?
Yeah.
So I view my life where, our goal as chiropractors is to remove the interference and let the body heal like it should. Because the body is meant to heal. It's not meant to be sick. But things in our life, whether it be spinal subluxation or toxins or poor nutrition, those interfere with our body's ability to heal, and our goal is to remove that as much as possible so the body can heal and be healthy, right? And so that life that my dad afforded me by teaching me these principles, I want to relay it to families so they can raise healthy kids, because we have a sick population in America, and especially like sometimes I make a joke that I don't like the adults are too far gone, right? They've been sick for so long, and that's not true. I mean that, and I want to take care of the kids and set a healthy foundation so that they grow up to be healthy adults, right? Because that's way easier to make. It's easier to stay healthy than it is to fix sick, right? And so that comes to spinal health, but also comes to normal health, right? So everything we do in chiropractic is, yes, restorative, but largely preventative to make sure that we stay healthy. So that's my biggest goal.
Sounds great.
Can I add to that too?
Oh,
I can't not add to it.
Fire away.
So a couple thoughts with the type of technique that we do because we take x-rays. I can't tell you how many times I've taken an x-ray and thought like, holy heck, I'm glad I took that x-ray. I would have not known that was there unless we took that x-ray. Chiropractic is interesting, whether it be technique or philosophy, but because our clinic is a clinic that takes x-rays when necessary, we have the opportunity to, it's not just like, oh, that feels off or that seems like that hip is higher. Like we can look at it and say, oh, the hip is higher because there's a curve in the spine, or the hip is higher because there's a leg length discrepancy, or there's a true rotational factor, right? Like we can be ultra specific in that. And so with that, that's part of what Dr. Dr. Ryan, is saying as far as how he addresses the spine, and some spines need manual adjustments, meaning the pop, and some do better without. But with that, we also do things like specific rehab exercises. So it's not having you jump down and do 20 push-ups, right? But like if you don't have a curve in your spine, there's specific things that we do recommend to help not just with the curve restoration in our clinic, but also with the muscles to regain that strength to actually hold your spine where it's supposed to be. So when you say like, I feel like my marbles are just gonna unmarble, you know what I mean? Like that's part of what we're doing with supporting the muscles in the spine. So it's not just fixing the spine, it's also rehabbing the muscles, because your muscles are what help hold your spine in place. And so a lot of times when you're just getting adjusted here and there and you're not actually doing anything to like retrain the muscles and ligaments, then someone's like, I just get adjusted forever and nothing's being held.
Yeah, like you're saying, the diet and all that stuff, it all kind of like interacts with the whole thing.
Also stress and lifestyle, like we have patients that retire and magically do so much better. You know, like we always joke if we could just write a doctor's note for retirement for everyone. Like you have the people retirement. Retirement right in the camera.
Third wall here.
But I mean that does make a big difference. Like our construction workers and the people that are doing specific things with their body, like those people, or you know the individual that you mentioned who's on her feet all the time and bending, lifting, twisting, like that is hard on the body.
Or
so being able to counteract that, or computer work, sitting at a computer for 40 hours a week. So.
Yeah, I would think that considering all that I have done in different industries and things like that, I'm thankful because it is kind of conditioned me for a lot of stuff. I can't imagine having a desk job. I can't imagine being stagnant like that. Because my wife, she has a desk job, and so she, and I just can't. I don't know how I can recover from that. Because I mean, I don't know if it's because I'm so active and things like that. So when I do get, like go on vacation, I was in a chair, and after 4 days, you're like, okay,
for sure,
in a chair, and so. Everything in the pizza industry, my shoulders are just toast. And in fact, my doctor, I went and said, by the way, I can't ride my motorcycle anymore because my arms go numb. All the whole thing. He's like, well, let me explain this to you. You're old. And I'm like, okay, so, but all this, bang, 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 all the time, and you're pressing dough all the time, and you're wrapping dough, and every single day for 35-something years of doing pizza, it's just it wears on you, but
that repetitive motion.
So.
Yeah, like one of my favorite lines recently is "Sitting is the new smoking," right? And it's just
sitting is the new smoking.
Yeah,
there's an article that they did on it too, just to show like.
That's a weird connection, but I can totally see what you're getting at.
The negative impact on the body and just overall health of sitting for 40 hours a week.
I'd rather you be rolling dough like you do, right, and being moving than sitting at a desk, because a lot of times we're getting better ergonomics and things like that, and companies are providing those kind of things to help. But it's just the brutal nature of sitting for that long. And I remember when we practiced in Florida, we would take x-rays, and I don't see, you're supposed to have a curve in your low back, right? Okay. I don't see reversals of that curve very often because it's very uncommon. I see more in the neck because we're looking down, texting all the time. Yeah. In California, where we're at, because we're in the Bay Area, when people are stuck in their cars for 3 hours because of commuting, I saw reversals in that lumbar spine way more than I do here because we're all sitting rounded in that car driving like this as opposed to having proper posture, right? So
you said Florida and then you said California. We practice in a lot of states.
Yes, we did. So California, it was the sitting in the San Jose, San Francisco Bay Area. That was just traffic.
You can't properly yell at other drivers sitting like that. Hey! So I'm very active in the driver's seat as well, so that's probably good. But But I the sitting thing I think is the most dangerous thing because our bodies are just becoming jello.
We were never meant to sit for that long. That's not how our bodies were developed, whether it's 1,000 years ago or millions of years ago. We were meant to be hunting deer and chasing it down and shooting it, and we were meant to be moving, and it's just not what we do today.
So now that we got through one fear of mine,
what's the next one?
Swimming? I invite you guys in to be like, by the way, I'm scared to death of both of the things you do. But no, one aside, fear. The other side, love water. So,
that's awesome.
So tell us a little bit about the swim school. I know you're coming up, or you just passed your anniversary, your 1 year anniversary. And so how's it going,
It's a go-in. It is definitely, it's a different adventure than what we've done with our clinic. Our clinic has been open, you said almost 10 years. I think we're at 9 years, but close enough that we've been open for a while. So the swim school, honestly, pure transparency, we opened it because I was frustrated with what we were experiencing with our oldest son. Our oldest son is gonna be 6 at the end of this year. And I'm from San Diego. I'm from an area that you go to swim lessons, you do perpetual. I did backyard pools. I went to swim schools. Like my understanding of the importance of water safety was very high. And so when our son turned 6 months old, it was like, yep, time to do swim lessons. And we tried, I don't know, 3 or 4 different programs in town, and we just didn't have a great experience for different reasons. And so we had a patient that said, hey, there's a building around the corner that we think that you should buy. It'd be great for your practice. Oh, and by the way, there's an indoor pool. And we were like, he's like, what the heck are we going to do with the pool?
I think it's great, though. And you coming up, you, like I said, when I just survived a year.
Yes.
I
mean, I think you forget about all the crazy things that happened in the first year. And the swim school was something that we started and took on because we wanted a different option for our kids. And the interesting thing was when we started just like engaging with the idea and we put stuff out on social media, and I am a part of a lot of the local like moms pages. And so I jumped on and I was like, hey, if we started a swim school, it was like before we bought the building. If we started a swim school, like who would be interested? And the responses were surprising of how many people felt the same way that we did, as far as their frustrations, as far as what they felt was lacking in our town. And we're the only swim school. So we're the first standalone swim school in Salem. I think there's like 8 to 10 up in Portland. That's the closest is probably like West Lynn just opened. A swim school. So so many families were like, just like me. I'm like, oh, maybe we should open the swim school. Like, it sounds like this is a need. And we were chatting about this before, but one of the comments that I had gotten was, oh, that's a silly idea. You only swim 3 months out of the year in Oregon. And I'm like, what are you talking about, lady? That Oregon has ponds and rivers and creeks, and we live in Turner, where Turner Lake is right there. And we know so many people that have, I'm going to call them ponds on their property, right? Like we have access to water all year long. That doesn't mean that kids aren't going to fall in January. Like they still need to know how to safely get out of it. So that was even more of like, oh no, we're doing this.
So I think that's wonderful. That just kind of is this entrepreneurial spirit that you get from people that are crazy like us for doing what we do.
Indeed.
Right?
For sure.
So back to the chiropractic stuff is other things. 'Cause I know you focus mainly on the spine. Is that pretty much most of it, or do you focus on other parts of the body? Because I think people are looking at like neck and spine and maybe hips, maybe, or something like that. But I just was curious. Do you,
my primary thing I work on is spine. Hence chiropractic. But the nice part about chiropractors is that we can adjust a lot of things. So I adjust extremities, ankles, wrists, elbows.
Sinuses for allergy season.
Yeah, we do a lot of sinus adjustment. That's probably the number one requested adjustment is the sinus adjustment, which is basically just activation of these sinuses, getting stuff moving so it gets that gunk out of there. It really helps people during allergy season. I do acid reflux adjustments in the stomach. That one's super effective for reducing acid reflux. And so there's a variety of things we can do, and I think chiropractic is cool in that we can address many health issues because of our scope. And so a lot of chiropractors do like different things, like the balloon thing with the sinuses too. I don't know if you heard that one. But they like blow up a balloon in your nose to open up the sinuses and let you breathe more. So there's a lot of different tools that we can use to help different things for sure.
We also have the ability in Oregon to be, I'm going to say this and then you'll get my disclaimer, to be like general practitioners, because back in the day, with Oregon being so spread out, they wanted chiropractors to be able to do things like deliver babies and prostate exams and minor surgery. My disclaimer is I don't do any of those. I do not do any of those, but the scope of chiropractic in Oregon is pretty broad. So one of the things that we also do what's called functional medicine. So we have the ability to order labs. So I can send a patient to get labs on vitamin D or thyroid or cortisol, or we do work with boutique labs for women that are trying to get pregnant. So I do a lot of work with women that are struggling with infertility. And we also work with kids, so kids that have gut issues, that have skin issues. We order labs, and I put protocols together for them, and pretty cool to watch
Well,
the
that's
body
kind of
heal.
cool, really, when you think
Yeah.
about it, because you really get to connect with a lot of other community businesses and things like that.
Totally.
Sure.
That really can always expand the opportunities you have to
Yeah.
help people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know.
I think one of the cool parts about our networking and what we do with businesses is, our biggest goal in the lens we look through is the body's meant to heal. We just have to remove that interference, right? Sometimes with Western medicine, what happens is they address treating disease, and that doesn't ever necessarily build health. That just covers up the band-aid of that disease, right? So a lot of times the practitioners we work with are more holistic minded, and that's super fun because we all have the same goal of getting this patient healthier. And when you get that end result of the person getting well and be able to do things that they want to do, especially like getting retirement and things like that, that's a super cool goal to get to.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, you can't see all the Band-Aids, but,
Oh, now I want to see your spine, so,
Oh, I'm telling you, it's, I grew up around a lot of nurses and things like that. My mom was a nurse, my aunts were nurses and stuff, and so, I think I kind of shied away from a lot of that, because like my mom was like, take ibuprofen, it's, to help, and I always thought, that's just, you're just covering up. I need to work it out, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She goes, no, it helps reduce the inflammation, blah blah blah. To this day, for me to take just 2 Advil, I got to be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
When I talk about like chiropractic work and things like that's how shy away I am, or I guess
For
it's
sure.
probably not the.
Yeah. You're not alone. That's
I was
most
gonna say,
guys.
I think part of that too, like when you had said that you're around mom, aunt that are like, there was a different philosophy, I think, as far as, like, I know nurses that come in now that, I'm going to say, give me how old, you don't have to tell your mom's age, maybe she's not watching this, or your aunt, what their, like, age range. Yeah. So I think that idea also of what chiropractic is different than nurses say that are, like, of our generation now. And so I think there's a shift in understanding of following whatever the insurance says, whatever your doctor says, just doing this, as opposed to like, well, what's causing the problem and why am I having this issue? And it's not because I have a lack of 2-aspirin in my body. You know what I mean? Like, what is the cause of this and how do I address that?
Because I have patients that come in that'll bring their mom or their aunt that's a nurse, and they're like, you're gonna adjust my 6-month-old. I'm like, watch how easy it is, and they see it and they're like, that wasn't as scary as I thought it was gonna be. You know, and it's like this perception or this notion of what, like we started out with, of what chiropractic is versus what we do in our office and what it can be.
No,
So.
I think it's great. I would love to come down and just have you, go, that's a. Can you explain these things to me?
Yeah.
Well, that was the bus. This was the Mustang. This was the tree. This was,
Yeah.
So I had to learn the difference between being wild and being reckless. When I was a youth, I call it youthful enthusiasm. Like, we deal with nothing but teenagers and things like that, and people are like, how do you handle that? Well, you just got to accept the fact that there's a lot of youthful enthusiasm involved, and you got to go back to when you were that age and things like that, and now some of us were a little more reckless back in those ages as well, and we're all paying the price now. But point being is, it's like, I would be curious to see, because this was when I got hit by the bus. It was like 94, maybe 96. So it's been a while, and I still, to this day, like you were talking about people that read and things like that, I have a hard time in that position to this day. But I pulled my Achilles the first year when we opened Odd Mo's, 26 years ago, and I limped for 20 years until my wife goes, would you please just go?
I understand. we make a joke that women control healthcare because a lot of times the guys are stubborn and they want to work it out, just like you said, right? But the wives are the ones that grab the ear by the husband and drag him in to get checked, and that's kind of how it works because, we don't really want to do anything until we have to do something.
Yeah.
So, that's okay. But, it's good to take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think we're in a time frame where people's self-health and self-acknowledgement and self-awareness
100%.
and all that kind of stuff is really at its peak.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say peak. Maybe it'll even get more, but I don't know how.
There's been a shift after the pandemic, for sure,
Yeah.
of people going, what can I do different? Or, what questions should I be asking?
Well, I'm really shocked that there's still the amount of fear.
I
And so many things that dealt with the pandemic had really kind of planted some seeds here that have just continued to grow.
Yeah.
You kind of hope they go away, but I think that, just like a lot of good things come out of things, sometimes a lot of bad things come out of things. You just got to kind of balance those things and educate yourself. But bringing up the community stuff, because I know how active you guys in networks and things like that, which I think as a small business owner or a business owner, you just really, you have to get out there because it's, you talked about you've been in it for a year and then people, you just getting to know everybody every single day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been doing it for 26 years and I run into people all the time that have never heard of us. And then when someone goes, I've heard of you, I just have never tried you, But if I was to take 10 people on the averages of that, I would say 2 out of 10 have never heard of us. And I'm like, how? How is that possible? How? We put out 1 million flyers every year for like 20 years. We've been on the outside back cover of the phone book. I mean, what else do I have to do? You'd be amazed. And they're still like, not a chance. Like, wow. And so we did all that, but still people don't know. And then, a lot of it, you get people that just say, I've heard of you, I just never tried you. And I think what's interesting is I always tell people that when you meet somebody, what's nice about that is at that moment you were a part of their lives or a part of their history from that moment forward. I think it's super important to get out there in the community and network and do those types of things. And so what else are you guys doing to do that other than just, like the networking groups?
Yeah, so our clinic in the past has done a lot of like turkey drives for local elementaries, adopting families. We've done community lunch and learns where we go and talk about health, specifically for the clinic. For the swim school, with us being open over the last year, obviously we're about kids and families. And so this year, I think we partnered with 5 or 6 local schools and elementary schools where they have like their silent auction that they do at the end of the year to raise funds. And so we donate a gift basket with a bunch of cool things, goggles and towels and free lessons, so that they can utilize that to be able to raise money for their program, whatever they're doing. And then we also have partnered with schools where May was Water Safety Month. So we asked the schools how many kids you have. Like I know Turner Elementary, I think, came back with 475 kids. So we essentially got together water safety information tips so that we can give them to the families of how to stay safe this summer and just how to be mindful around water and what they can do to instill safety in their kids. So we've given them lots of paper, killed a few trees along the way, but gave them our water safety tips just to be able to get those into families' hands of how do you stay safe around water. Because now, like I said, now is the time that people are like, oh, swim lessons. Oh, what am I supposed to do now that it's time to get in the water? So, I
was wondering if you were more busy, because I think it's really funny how like ice cream is more popular in the winter versus the summer, which kind of doesn't make any sense, For you, when is your high season?
Yes to summer. However, we're perpetual learn to swim program, so we are year round. So we always say we have 3 types of swimmers. We have the swimmers that like June 16th when school is out, they're like ready to learn all the things, and then they're done at August 30th and hope that they're Olympic level in 2 months. We have the ones that we call the 9-month swimmers that literally swim all year except for summer. So they drop
that makes sense.
For summer and they come back in fall because they travel, or they're like, hey, we have access to our community pool, or we have access to X, Y, and Z now. So we're going to practice everything and we'll see you in the fall.
We can float down the river.
Yep. And then we have our year-round swimmers that, like I said, we've been open years. So we have people that started with us, say, as a preschooler, and they've gone through our otter, then our turtle, then our dolphin, then our sailfish, and now they're working on pre-swim team stuff. So
give everybody an understanding of like you guys have packages and things like that. I'm sure you have different packages for the swim schools and the different things you do there. And then for you as well, do you have like things like that you offer as well? Because I'm kind of curious of that. You're
talking like as far as like a new patient come in or things like that.
Is it just as needed kind of stuff, or do you actually have something that you do like that?
Yeah, so there's different philosophies of chiropractic, and there's some that the as needed come in and get adjusted once in a while. I like to try to correct things. So when I look at a spine, I try to analyze it and go, okay, what is the optimal function I can get this person, right? So I'll give a recommendation based on that, and that's usually a set of visits over a set amount of time, right? Once we get there, I don't want to be like, cool, you're good forever, and I'll never see you again, right? And that's kind of what you're alluding to a little bit with wellness, because in a perfect world, I would correct it and then not never see you again, right? But that's not how society works. Like, we're tough on our bodies, right? Whether we're sitting all day, or whether we're looking at computers, or whether we're getting hit by buses, or all those things, right?
Try not to do that.
Yeah, don't do that one. Not recommended.
Yeah.
But I want to maintain and keep that level of health that we've just spent time and effort getting you to, right?
So it's really relationship based too.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
You really get to know people.
Oh, for sure. I've had patients for over 8 years now, and I know their families. I've taken care of their kids, and they're
like graduating high school, and we're like, stop growing.
Yeah, they went from 9 and now they're 17 and about to graduate, and it's just it's it's kind of crazy, and it's
cool.
like you said, time flies.
26 years, you got to think some of the kids that I hired when they were 17 and 18, now 35, 40.
Yeah.
But you're a part of people's lives. Like that's a big thing for us, is like community, but being a part of people's lives and their journey,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's cool to see. When you're trying to teach people about health, those kids growing up with that mindset too, right? And that's really the goal, is raising them to know their body's meant to heal and that it's not broken, and that you just have to do things. And
well, you have an interesting history of that because your dad.
Yeah.
100%. And so you kind of were there with it and then without it, and so you really got to see on a very personal level exactly how that affected you and stuff. And so when you talk about it, you really have that history. So it's not like you go, chiropractor would be cool. I know a chiropractor's got a really nice boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to be a chiropractor,
Yeah.
It's not that. I mean, really, it was a lifetime for you, a life thing. Right. And so I think creating those relationships, I think, is kind of neat because you have that different perspective. You have a really kind of a deeper sense of what you do. So, that is awesome. So for you, I mean, you have different packages that you offer for...
Are you talking about for the swim school?
Yeah.
So the majority of our swimmers do a once a week. So it's a once a week perpetual lesson. Okay. I have a handful of swimmers that choose to swim twice a week. I have a couple swimmers that swim 4 to 5 times a week and would swim every hour if we let them. Yeah. But on average, I would say most kids do once a week. And
so really yours is mostly school based versus like
is that recreational?
Yeah.
I mean, recreational.
We're a Learn to Swim program. So what that means is we have a specific Learn to Swim curriculum that's based upon progressions. Okay. So, he always jokes that he's like the grumpy dad. And in the beginning, he's like, bubbles. Everyone hates bubbles. I'm like, well, let me tell you why we do bubbles, right? So there's like a specific purpose why we do something. So for bubbles, for example, right, we're teaching breath control and breath exchange, and that matters then when we go underwater, and then we're going underwater, we're teaching how to float, and when we teach how to float, we teach how to roll over, and we teach how to so everything is a progression based, and that's how kids move along with that. So we basically the other cool thing about our program is we're a 4-to-1 ratio, so that means 4 kids to 1 instructor. The summer before, when I was ready to end my other situation at a previous location, there was 8 kids to 1 instructor. That's really hard for 1 instructor to keep.
You're like
8
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
The water.
My kid was 3, right? And you have 8 kids in there.
Oh, that would be nuts.
It didn't work. And so that 4-to-1 ratio really allows for the instructor to be intentional. And then we have lesson cards that help track where every student is. So every class has a lesson card with every single student's name on it. And then we have what skills are required in that class and where they're at with it. So they're checked off, and then we check our kids at least once a month unless the instructor knows that they can pass that skill. So we're intentional with how we're moving the kids along and teaching them to learn to swim. One of my favorite reviews we recently got was a grandma that said, we teach something called elementary backstroke. It's also called resting stroke. So it is what we teach kids for safety. So for example, in a place like Oregon, where you could be in a pool, you could be in Turner Lake, if you're swimming and you get tired, you're not going to bust out freestyle, because freestyle is it's exhausting. It's also you putting your face in the water. So we teach them elementary backstroke, which is on their back, and it's like like the froggy breaststroke. It's the opposite, but on their back. So we teach kids, if you're face down, you're not breathing. If you're face up, you're breathing, right? That's the idea of a float. So we teach kids elementary backstroke. If you're ever in a lake, if you're in an ocean, if you need to get out of that body of water, you do monkey, tree, banana, right? Kids remember that. Monkey, tree, banana. And that's literally that motion on your back gets you out of the water.
that initial panic will take
Yeah.
about 16 of those laps out real quick.
That's what the grandma said, though. She's like, well, now I know how to get out of an ocean. I'll just monkey tree banana. And I was like, yes, I'm glad that you heard that, Grandma.
I think that's great. So I appreciate you guys coming in and
Thanks
doing
for
all
having
that
us.
stuff.
Subscribe, click the link below.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I don't know if
You
you guys
guys
know it.
imagine the chaos when I'm editing, though?
Oh, yeah.
like,
You're
oh,
like,
no,
okay, they
raccoon
talked
story,
about
raccoon
chiropractic
story.
here.
Yeah,
So
you got good stuff, though.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Oddmo's Community Networks. Join us next week as Chris from Black Label Marketing sits down with us to share his journey in marketing and how he's leveraged networking to elevate his business. We hope to see you next time.